Now, I have the honor to give the floor to Her Excellency Dr. Fancy Chepkemoi II, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the Republic of Kenya to the United Nations Office in Geneva, to introduce the Kenyan delegation. Excellency, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. It's my privilege to welcome you all to Kenya's 4th Universal Periodic Review. Allow me to extend our heartfelt appreciation to all member and observer states for your continued and steadfast support and active participation so far in this important process. I'm honored to introduce the head of our delegation, Madam Dorcas Oduor, the Attorney General of Kenya, who is joined today by a very diverse team reflecting our nation's strong commitment to upholding human rights. Indeed, we deeply value the spirit of constructive dialogue and partnership that defines UPR, and we look forward to engaging meaningfully and robustly with all delegations. We are confident that our collective efforts will contribute to a meaningful and successful review. Thank you once again for your collaboration and constructive spirit. I now welcome Madam Dorcas Oduor, Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya and the head of our delegation. Karibu, AG.
Vice President, sir, distinguished members of the UPR Working Group, Excellencies, members of the Council and observers. It is a distinct honor and privilege to lead Kenya's delegation before this esteemed working group for our 4th Circle Review under the Universal Periodic Review mechanism. On behalf of the Government of Kenya, I unreservedly reaffirm our profound dedication to advancing the human rights of every individual within our nation's borders, deeply valuing the engagement of all UN members and observer states in the crucial review. We welcome your insightful contributions that will enrich this vital dialogue and collectively fortify global human rights endeavors. Vice President, sir, as we embark on our 4th Universal Periodic Review, we do so with a deep sense of pride and responsibility, marked notably by our recent accession to the United Nations Human Rights Council for the 2025-27 term. This distinguished position reflects the international community's recognition of Kenya's steadfast commitment to advancing human rights, both locally and across the globe. It also entrusts us with the responsibility to contribute in shaping global human rights priorities and responses. In this regard, we reiterate our dedication to multilateralism, to upholding the universal values enshrined in the international human rights system, and to advancing meaningful progress for all. Vice President, sir, today I'm accompanied by a multidisciplinary delegation evidencing the collaborative approach Kenya takes in advancing human rights. With me are the representatives from the Office of the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, officers from the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, officers from State Department for Gender and Affirmative Action, the State Department for Social Protection and Senior Citizen Affairs, and the National Police Service. Their presence reflects the centrality of coordinated governance in our human rights agenda. A national report was developed through the National Committee on International and Regional Human Rights Obligations, coordinated input from various stakeholders, including civil society organizations, county governments, and development partners, reflecting our commitment to right-based governance and accountability. During the 3rd Circle Review, Kenya accepted 263 recommendations spanning a broad spectrum of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights, as well as group rights. It is now my pleasure to present Kenya's 4th National Universal Periodic Review report, highlighting achievements, challenges, and areas where technical assistance is needed. Vice President, sir, human rights remain the cornerstone of our shared humanity. Guided by our Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as the bedrock of international human rights standards, Kenya is committed to fostering a just society. Our strong adherence to human rights is evident through ratification of 7 of the key international human rights instruments. The government remains dedicated to their full and effective implementation, which entails both regular reporting to treaty bodies and constructive engagement in dialogue with them. A thorough assessment of the remaining instruments is underway to pave way for future ratifications, ensuring Kenya's full alignment with international human rights standards. In the interim, we have implemented various legal, policy, judicial, and other mechanisms to safeguard the enjoyment of these rights by all citizens. Further, Kenya has maintained a standing invitation to UN special procedures, consistently accepting visit requests and engaging with the recommendations in accordance with each mandate's function. Vice President, sir, Kenya's prominent role during the landmark 75th anniversary celebrations of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was vividly demonstrated as we proudly served as a vibrant regional hub. Throughout the year-long commemoration, Kenya hosted national and regional dialogues, cultural events, and high-level forums that fostered engagement on human rights issues across East Africa. This leadership role underscores Kenya's deep commitment to human rights unity, dialogue, and collective action in advancing their principles of dignity, equality, and freedom enshrined in the Universal Declaration. Furthermore, our commitment is reflected in the important pledges we undertook during this momentous occasion, outlining concrete actions and initiatives aimed at further strengthening the protection and promotion of human rights within our nation and beyond. The recent agreement between the Kenya government and the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights to establish a new multi-country OHCHR office in Nairobi is a testament to Kenya's standing within the international community and reinforces our role as a beacon for human rights in Africa. This multi-country office will coordinate efforts across several neighboring countries, providing technical expertise, capacity building, and strategic guidance to promote and protect human rights throughout the region. Vice President, sir, Kenya has undertaken key reforms to safeguard civil and political rights, strengthening fundamental freedoms through legislative and institutional frameworks. Police and security sector reforms driven by laws such as the IPOA Act and the Police Reform Framework aim to enhance oversight, professionalism, and accountability. The Task Force on Police Reforms, established in December 2022, has proposed measures to improve police welfare, independence, and operational capacity, with implementation underway as we speak today. Additionally, Kenya is advancing national dialogue and legislative efforts towards abolishing the death penalty, reinforcing its commitment to protecting the right to life. Efforts to combat torture and ill treatment have been reinforced through legislative reforms and enhanced institutional oversight mechanisms, ensuring greater accountability and protection of human rights. Freedom of expression and assembly continue to be protected, with various reforms aimed at expanding civic space while ensuring national security concerns as appropriately balanced. Kenya acknowledges the significance of enacting legislation to protect human rights defenders and eliminate discrimination. While specific laws dedicated to human rights defenders and anti-discrimination have not yet been adopted, existing legal provisions such as the constitutional guarantees and sector-specific regulations provide mechanisms for protection and inclusivity. Public participation is the cornerstone of democratic governance. Kenya has adopted a national public participation policy and is in the process of developing a public participation bill to give this right full legislative effect. To ensure wide, inclusive engagement, especially of marginalized groups, we invite support from the international community to facilitate robust consultations during this bill's development. Vice President, sir, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda in Kenya is anchored on 5 key pillars: agriculture, micro, small and medium enterprises, housing and settlement, healthcare, and the digital superhighway and creative economy. These pillars form the foundation of the government strategy to improve the livelihoods of Kenyans and are aligned with the broader development goals outlined in Kenya's Vision 2030. To this end, targeted interventions in food security, including subsidized agricultural inputs, smart farming techniques, and infrastructure improvements, have effectively reduced food insecurity and enhanced household nutrition. Regarding healthcare, access continues to expand through universal health coverage, supported by strong legislative reforms and strategic investment in digital health and community care systems. Furthermore, the Affordable Housing Program has substantially increased access to decent shelter for low-income earners, while simultaneously fostering employment and stimulating economic growth, reinforcing Kenya's commitment to sustainable development. Kenya continues to lead in advancing the business and human rights agenda. Recently hosting the African Business and Human Rights Forum in 2024, and having been the first African country to adopt a national action plan on business and human rights, which continues to serve as a pioneering framework for implementing the UN guiding principles on business and human rights in Africa, encouraging regional momentum towards stronger protections for human rights in business operations, and fostering a culture of accountability, transparency, and sustainable development. We are now developing a human rights due diligence framework which will guide public and private sector actors in proactively addressing human rights risks across business operations. Vice President, sir, in advancing group rights, Kenya underscores the critical importance of investing in its children, our future through strong legal protections. The Children Act 2022 serves as a cornerstone, comprehensively implementing the provisions of the optional protocol on the sale, child prostitution, and child pornography. This cornerstone offers explicit protection against trafficking, child prostitution, child pornography, child labor, both physical and psychological abuse, neglect, and sexual exploitation. Acknowledging the critical challenges of the environment and climate change, Kenya has established itself as a global leader in the environmental stewardship, exemplified by hosting the UNEP headquarters in Nairobi since 1972. Kenya has demonstrated visionary leadership in climate action by spearheading the inaugural Africa Climate Summit in 2023, championing the Nairobi Declaration for Green Growth, and leading Africa in renewable energy, with a large percentage of its electricity generated from renewable sources. Vice President, sir, in recognizing the need to address evolving human rights challenges, the government is reviewing the 2014 National Policy and Action Plan on Human Rights to encompass emerging issues. This includes the persistent challenge of poverty and its impact on the realization of social economic rights, the rights of the marginalized, alongside contemporary concerns posed by emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, data protection, and the need for robust regulatory frameworks. These frameworks are essential to the responsible use of technology in Kenya, particularly in combating misinformation and safeguarding data privacy, forming the foundation of the National Artificial Intelligence Strategy 2025-2030. As Africa's Silicon Savannah, Kenya has strengthened its data protection laws and introduced Linda Data and AI chatbots designed to provide real-time privacy support, reinforcing the country's commitment to digital security and ethical technology use. The updated national policy further shines a bright light on uplifting marginalized communities. It pledges concrete steps to heal historical wounds, foster a society where everyone belongs, and guarantee equal pathways to opportunity for all vulnerable groups. Vice President, sir, we are also addressing complex challenges. The protracted refugee situation in Dadaab and Kakuma places pressure on local infrastructure and resources. In response, we launched the Shirika Plan in 2024 to transition refugees from camps to integrated settlements, promoting self-reliance and social cohesion with host communities. We continue to invite support for over 800,000 refugees and asylum seekers in need of protection and durable solutions. The Kenyan government is currently actively addressing the deeply concerning rise in femicide by implementing a multi-pronged approach that includes a task force established in 2025 to investigate root causes and propose reforms, alongside investment in campaigns aimed at ending gender-based violence and strengthening judicial and law enforcement response mechanisms. Vice President, sir, we acknowledge that there are other areas where progress has been slower than we desire. Kenya faces economic challenges impacting rights enjoyments. The operationalization of the Prevention of Torture Act has been challenging due to perceived complexity of the Act, which we are addressing through intensified training and introduction of a clear charge sheet and a rapid reference guide to aid in prosecuting torture-related cases. Worryingly, Africa's limited access to climate finance poses a significant threat to development and rights realization. Kenya reiterates the urgent call for increased and predictable climate financing in accordance with the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and its Paris Agreement, and its principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. In acknowledging these challenges, Kenya remains strongly committed to addressing them through institutional reform, political will, and partnerships, including with civil society, the international community, and our people. Vice President, sir, we approach this universal periodic review with genuine openness to feedback, with humility, in acknowledging both our achievements and shortcomings, and with a firm belief in the transformative power of collaborative partnerships. We are here not only to present our efforts, but also to actively listen to valuable insights, to learn from best practices shared by fellow member and observer states, and to recommit ourselves with renewed vigor to the shared global goal of upholding human rights, dignity, and ensuring the full realization of human rights for all individuals without exception. Thank you for your dedicated time and the invaluable opportunity to engage in this crucial dialogue. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Excellency, Attorney General, Ambassador, thank you for the statements. We shall now begin our interactive dialogue. Before giving the floor to delegations for their questions and comments, I would like to remind you that the speaking time will be 1 minute for all. I wish to reiterate that issues of a political, bilateral, and territorial nature should be kept out of our deliberations. Moreover, United Nations terminology should be used when referring to states and territories. Please be reminded that only the use of words recommend or recommendation will ensure that the relevant parts of your statements are included in the recommendations section of the Working Group report. Also, allow me to recall that the Human Rights Council strongly rejects any act of intimidation or reprisal against individuals and groups who cooperate or have cooperated with the United Nations and its representatives and mechanisms in the field of human rights. Now we will begin with the list of speakers, and the first I would like to invite the representative of Vietnam.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Vietnam warmly welcomes the high-level delegation of Kenya. We commend Kenya for its initiatives to enhance access to information, including the digitalization of public services and the training of public officers. We also appreciate Kenya's progress in the health sector, particularly the substantial reduction in new HIV infections and the expansion of the preventive and treatment services. In a constructive spirit, Vietnam recommends that Kenya, 1. Continue efforts to enhance access to legal aid and justice for all, with particular attention to vulnerable persons. 2. Enhance efforts to integrate climate resilience and environmental sustainability into national and county development planning. We wish Kenya every success in its UPR process. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Now I invite the representative of Zambia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Zambia warmly welcomes the distinguished delegation of Kenya to the 4th cycle of the UPR. We thank them for the presentation of the national report and update. We applaud Kenya for its commitment to the work of the Human Rights Council. We also commend their government for the significant progress in promoting the right to health by increasing their budgetary allocation to the health sector and the enactment of the Digital Health Act. In the spirit of constructive engagement, Zambia wishes to recommend the following for consideration by the delegation of Kenya. 1. Ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. 2. Strengthen legislation protecting the land rights of indigenous people. We wish Kenya a successful review. Thank you, Vice President.
I invite the distinguished representative of Croatia, please.
Mr. Vice President, Croatia welcomes the delegation of Kenya and thanks them for their report. We welcome the efforts taken in the area of child rights, including raising the age of criminal responsibility, banning corporal punishment in all settings, and training children's officers in gender-based violence cases. We encourage Kenya to continue addressing protection measures against human trafficking, especially women and children. Croatia has 3 recommendations. 1. ratify the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. 2, ensure every child's right to free birth registration and certification for all children, regardless of their parents' identity or status. 3, take immediate measures to ensure the full enjoyment of the freedom of religion or belief and protect worshippers from attacks, including Christians. Croatia wishes Kenya a successful review session. I thank you.
I thank you. And now I give the floor to the delegation of Kenya to address observations and comments as they have been raised so far. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vice President, sir. Esteemed Council members, I take the floor to respond to 7 questions and comments, after which I'll pass the baton on to my colleagues, Ms. Kariuki and Mr. Kibunja. I start with the first issue on hate speech. Kenya launched the National Action Plan Against Hate Speech 2022 and amended the Evidence Act to include electronic and digital evidence, strengthening our capacity to investigate, prosecute, and deter such offenses, thereby fostering accountability and safeguarding vulnerable populations. On the issue of anti-corruption frameworks in Kenya, I wish to state that Article 27 of our Constitution establishes a powerful cornerstone for protection against all forms of discrimination. Demonstrating our strategic approach, the government has chosen to cascade this fundamental principle across multiple targeted laws rather than consolidate it in one single statute. This ensures nuanced safeguards in the diverse complexes. We have the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, which promotes harmony and outlaws discrimination on ethnic or racial grounds. We have the Employment Act, which prohibits direct and indirect discrimination and harassment in the workplace based on color, race, sex, disability, or any other ground. This multi-pronged strategy provides comprehensive protection, reflecting our deep commitment to equality and inclusivity in every sector of society. On the matter of protecting the right to assemble, the Constitution guarantees the right to peaceful assembly and demonstration as a cornerstone of democratic expression. The National Assembly's Administration and Internal Security Committee rejected the proposed Assembly and Demonstration Bill 2024, a private member's bill, for failing to fully comply with constitutional standards. The justification for any limitation, such as notification requirement, is solely to ensure public safety and order. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority is currently conducting inquiries to ensure accountability for any misconduct. On the matter of the rights of indigenous persons, the government is actively developing comprehensive plans to resolve long-standing land issues originating from forest areas. These plans specifically aim to address the grievances of indigenous communities, such as the Ogek and the people of Mbembut and other indigenous people. A key objective is to ensure the settlement of these communities, or where legally proven, their secure return to the ancestral land and issuance of title deeds. On the issue of same-sex unions, rooted in its constitutional definition of marriage as exclusively between a man and a woman, the government of Kenya aligns its policies accordingly. While there are no current plans to amend existing laws to legalize same-sex unions due to this constitutional definition, the government underscores that every individual, irrespective of sexual orientation, is entitled to the full protection of their fundamental rights. The Constitution guarantees equal access to economic, social, and political rights for all citizens. Kenya remains steadfast in its commitment to upholding the inherent dignity and rights of every person within the nation without exception. On the matter of the death penalty, there is a moratorium on death penalty. There has been no execution since 1982. Indeed, as we speak, there are 4 bills in Parliament on the abolition of the death penalty. Government has continuously engaged with all stakeholders, the public, and the Parliament with a view to sensitizing on the evils of death penalty. On the matter of protection of the IDPs, since enacting the 2012 IDP Act, Kenya has actively supported internally displaced persons. The 2024-2025 budget allocates 3.7 billion for resettlement integration, including education to the children, IDP children that is, provision of housing services, livelihoods, and psychosocial support, which is all overseen transparently by the National Consultative Coordination Committee. National-wide standard operating procedures have been developed to ensure correct IDP identification and verification for effective assistance. I will now pass the baton to Ms. Kariuki to continue with responding to the questions. Thank you.
Mr. Vice President, members of the UPR Working Group, distinguished delegates, good morning. I will highlight my government's efforts in setting up a national mechanism for reporting and follow-up, the operationalization of the National Coroner Service, safeguarding of journalists and human rights defenders, ensuring privacy rights amidst evolving surveillance concerns, enhancing access to justice and legal aid, strengthening efforts in counter-trafficking in persons. Kenya's mechanism for coordinating and monitoring the implementation of human rights recommendations, including those from the Universal Periodic Review Mechanism, is the National Committee on International and Regional Human Rights Obligation, formally established in March of 2019. Serving as a standing body responsible for reporting and follow-up, the committee comprises representatives from national human rights institutions, government ministries, and agencies, including the State Department for Economic Planning, ensuring alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, and leveraging voluntary national reports for data collection. To enhance reporting, the government is consulting with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to establish a national reporting and tracking database aimed at facilitating reporting and follow-up on UN treaty bodies and regional mechanisms. Additionally, training and capacity building sessions have been conducted for committee members, strengthening their ability to utilize these tools effectively. The operationalization of the National Coroner Service is being spearheaded by the Office of the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, with oversight from an interagency implementation committee established in 2020. To date, the committee has made significant progress, including the development of human resource instruments, amendments to the National Coroner Service Act, securing of office space, and appointment of an acting Coroner General to provide expertise during this transition. Furthermore, since the financial year 2022-2023, Parliament has allocated funding to support this initiative, strengthening efforts to establish a fully functional National Coroner Service. On the protection of journalists and human rights defenders, Kenya acknowledges the critical role that journalists and human rights defenders play in promoting transparency, accountability, and democratic governance. To safeguard the rights, the government has established the National Mechanism for the Safety and Protection of Journalists, which provides a framework for responding to threats, harassment, and violence against media practitioners. Additionally, Kenya continues to strengthen legal protections under the Access to Information Act, ensuring that journalists can operate freely without undue restrictions. In addition, the Access to Information General Regulations were adopted in 2023 and guide on the procedure for proactive disclosure of information by public entities and private bodies and the procedure for requesting access to information. Kenya acknowledges the importance of protecting human rights defenders and remains committed to strengthening legal frameworks that safeguard their work. While a specific law dedicated to human rights defenders has yet to be adopted, existing legal provisions, including constitutional guarantees and sectoral regulations, provide mechanisms for their protection. Ongoing discussions continue to explore legislative measures that would enhance these protections in line with international best practices. On surveillance and the right to privacy, Kenya recognizes the growing concern surrounding state surveillance and data protection. The Constitution guarantees the right to privacy, and the government has enacted the Data Protection Act, which establishes safeguards against unauthorized access to personal information. To address their concerns, Kenya is reviewing existing surveillance laws such as the Kenya Information and Communications Act, which governs electronic communication, to align it with international human rights standards. The Kenya Information and Communications Amendment Bill of 2023 proposes several changes, including updates to compliance with intellectual property rights. On legal aid and access to justice, Kenya has implemented several initiatives to improve access to justice, focusing on legal aid. During this reporting period, frameworks such as the National Action Plan for Legal Aid 2017 to 2022 and the Legal Aid General Regulations of 2022 were developed. Legal aid services have supported over 5.7 million individuals, including prisoners, while also assisting thousands through a toll-free support line. The National Legal Aid Service is advancing legal aid efforts by finalizing the Legal Aid Fund Regulations 2024. In addition, the service has trained over 300 paralegals and established offices in 4 marginalized counties to enhance access to legal assistance. The National Legal Aid Service has also facilitated the resolution of more than 1,000 cases through alternative dispute resolution, in line with the 2020 Alternative Justice Policy. On the issue of measures to address trafficking in persons, Kenya National Action Plan Against Human Trafficking 2022 to 2027 outlines a strategic framework to combat trafficking, with a particular focus on vulnerable groups such as children and persons with albinism. To ensure effective implementation, the government has adopted several concrete measures. For children, Kenya has strengthened child protection mechanisms, including the National Assistance Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking, which provides financial and psychosocial support to survivors. Additionally, standard operating procedures have been developed for investigating and prosecuting child trafficking cases, ensuring law enforcement officers and judicial officials are equipped to handle such cases effectively. Regarding persons with albinism, Kenya has integrated targeted protections within its anti-trafficking framework. Awareness campaigns have been expanded to combat harmful myths that fuel trafficking risks, while affirmative action programs provide medical support, protective gear, and legal assistance to affected individuals. The government is also working to strengthen cross-border cooperation to prevent transnational trafficking networks from exploiting persons with albinism. Further, Kenya continues to train law enforcement and judicial officers on countering trafficking in persons, ensuring they have the necessary expertise to identify, investigate, and prosecute trafficking cases effectively. These efforts are complemented by multi-stakeholder engagements involving civil society organizations, international partners, and community leaders to enhance prevention and response mechanisms. In closing, we appreciate your time and dedication to advancing human rights globally, and we look forward to continued collaboration in addressing these pressing issues together. I will now hand over to my colleague, Mr. Kibunja, who will continue responding to other issues raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, members of the UPR Working Group, distinguished delegates, it is my privilege to report on the transformative progress that the Government of Kenya has achieved across multiple sectors, laying a solid foundation for inclusive growth, sustainable development, and shared prosperity. On ratification, the Government of Kenya is actively pursuing the ratification of the following key conventions: the Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. Efforts are underway to assess its implications and amend the Penal Code to criminalize enforced disappearances. Stakeholder engagement has also been commenced on the ratification of the optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, on the sale of children, child prostitution, and pornography. Although it has not yet been ratified, the principles of the Convention are being implemented under the Children's Act of 2022. Additionally, a technical working group under the Commissioner of Labour has adopted a roadmap for ratifying International Labour Organization Conventions 190 and 189. Ratifying ILO C-190 is also a priority within President William Ruto's Women's Charter, highlighting the government's broader commitment to advancing these international frameworks. On digital connectivity, recognizing that digital access is fundamental to 21st century opportunity, the government has harnessed Kenya Power's transmission line network to extend last-mile fiber optic connectivity to remote regions. By the end of 2023, 13,712 kilometers of fiber cable had been laid, and public Wi-Fi hotspots expanded from 40 in 2022 to 1,262 today. To deepen this reach, we are on track to establish 1,450 ward-level ICT hubs. These centers will offer digital literacy training, content creation support, and one-stop access to government services, empowering youth digital creators, IT professionals, and entrepreneurs to compete locally and globally. Under the Jitume program, we aim to empower 1 million youth with infrastructure and 23,000 digital devices. Concurrently, the government has digitized 20,855 public services, up from 350 in 2022, boosting efficiency, transparency, and revenue collection. To support livelihoods, the Financial Inclusion Fund, that is the Hustler Fund, disbursed 60 billion Kenya shillings by November 2024, reaching 24,600,000 million customers, with 8.5 million repeat borrowers, with affordable credit and achieving a 79% repayment rate. Through the fund saving policy, 3.3 billion Kenya shillings has been mobilized, while the credit guarantee scheme has backed 6.3 billion in loans to 4,147 micro, small, and medium enterprises across 46 counties. On housing, housing for all is no longer a dream but a reality in the making. The Affordable Housing Act 2024, a landmark legislation aligned to Article 43 of our Constitution, has established long-term financing for the housing program. Over 124,000 units are under construction across 75 sites in 37 counties, including social, affordable, and middle-class homes, as well as student and security personnel accommodation. More than 547,000 Kenyans have registered on the Boma Yangu portal and saved 2.3 billion towards home ownership. This program has generated 164,000 jobs along the housing value chain, with 4,888 units set for imminent completion. Chairperson, youth remain our greatest resource. To date, 201,418 have been trained in life, business, and entrepreneurial skills, creating 187,451 jobs, while 1.2 billion in loans has supported over 95,000 youth entrepreneurs. 83 youth empowerment centers serve over 1 million youth. As urban migration accelerates, the Kenyan Urban Settlement Program 2 will bolster municipality capacity and integrate refugees into host communities. Today, we host over 800,000 refugees governed under the Refugee Act and its 2024 regulations. They have benefited with over 4,000 scholarship slots, 760 new classrooms, 2,215 teachers, and municipal status for Kakuma and Dadaab, ensuring access to services and livelihoods. Kenya ensures the protection of asylum seekers by upholding the principle of non-refoulement and providing a legal framework aligned with international conventions. The Refugee Act 2021, along with its implementing regulations, reinforces Kenya's commitment to refugee safety. The government employs a comprehensive refugee status determination process with safeguards against persecution risks. Remedies for rights breaches are accessible through civil and criminal channels, the judiciary, constitutional commissions, and support from civil society organizations. Kenya's Refugee Act adopts the 1951 Convention's definition, protecting anyone with a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of membership of a particular social group or other grounds, and applies the serious threat to life or freedom test to all such claims. We remain open to working with partners to build our adjudicators' capacity so that everyone who meets these standards obtains protection. In water, Access to safe water has improved dramatically. An additional 5.8 million people now enjoy improved services, and 280,000 more households have sanitation connections. Completion of Karimenu 2 and the Northern Collector Tunnel has boosted bulk supply by over 210,000 cubic meters per day, while Karimenu, Yamo, Pemba, and Bakuli dams have raised per capita storage. Groundwater mapping is complete for Wajir, Turkana, and Marsabit. In agriculture, 181,069 acres have been newly irrigated. In energy, we are building on our bottom-up economic transformation agenda. The government added 240 megawatts of electricity capacity, connecting over 700,000 new customers, including 1,702 public facilities, bringing total connections to over 9.7 million. With that, Honorable Chairperson, I thank you and wish to conclude.
Thank you. Now I invite the representative of Bolivia.
Thank you. We would like to welcome the delegation of Kenya. We're grateful for the submission of the report as well as their constructive participation. We hail the work done to incorporate Indigenous voices in discussions related to rights and the management of resources, as well as the implementation of a gender policy in the agricultural sector. Bolivia respectfully recommends strengthening the National Gender and Equality Commission, which oversees the work aimed at cross-cutting gender perspective and including marginalized groups. Increase efforts and resources to implement the National Agricultural Strategy for the transformation of agri-food systems 2020-2023, giving priority to small-scale farmers at the county level. And 3, give continuity to promoting the inclusion of refugees in economic and social development, including them in access to services. We wish them every success. Thank you.
Thank you. As this was the last speaker on our list for this review, I will now give the floor back to the Kenyan delegation to address the observations and comments made during this third wave of interventions. Please, Excellency.
Thank you, Vice President, sir. Allow me to use the next few minutes before closing to respond to 2 pending issues and observations. That is decriminalizing abortion and the Kampala amendments. On abortion, the government of Kenya wishes to emphasize that Article 26(4) of our Constitution establishes specific and limited circumstances under which abortion is permitted. The provision stipulates that in the considered opinion of a trained health professional, abortion is lawful only when there is a necessity for emergency treatment, when the life or health of the mother is at risk, or has otherwise prescribed by law. Furthermore, various court decisions have reinforced this principle that abortion can only be undertaken under the specific circumstances already outlined, acknowledging the critical need to protect a woman's life and health. The national guidelines on the management of sexual violence were drawn up to provide important guidelines on how to handle survivors of sexual violence, including rape and defilement, who have the right to receive information about pregnancy termination as a potential option. We understand the sensitivity of this issue and are committed to upholding the principle enshrined in our Constitution while also ensuring access to necessary medical care. Regarding the Kampala amendments to the Rome Statute on the crime of aggression, Kenya is deeply engaged in the ongoing review process. Following our participation in the South African meeting last October, we are preparing for further discussions in Ghana this year, in fact this month. The Kenya government is currently undertaking a comprehensive and nuanced examination of these amendments, involving a thorough evaluation of their potential ramifications to inform our ratification decision. Esteemed members, as our presentation draws to our close, we wish to underscore the enduring spirit of progress that guides Kenya's human rights journey. Like a river seeking a more expansive sea, our commitment commitment to upholding the inherent dignity and fundamental rights of every Kenyan flows ever forward. I thank you. I now call on our head of delegation to make closing remarks.
Vice President, Chairperson, sir, distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude this important dialogue, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to you all and all delegates and members of this council for your thoughtful observations, questions, and constructive recommendations. This engagement has offered the Government of Kenya a critical opportunity to reflect, re-evaluate, and reinforce its commitments to human rights. We are encouraged by the recognition of the progress we have made and are equally challenged by the candid discussions on areas where we must do more. We have taken note of your concerns on key issues, including the fight against impunity, protection of civic space, rights of marginalized groups, and enforced disappearances. I wish to reiterate Kenya's commitment to the Universal Periodic Review process and to the United Nations human rights mechanisms in general. The Universal Periodic Review process remains an important tool because a majority of the recommendations made help us to improve the human rights situation back home. We take this process as an opportunity to take stock of the achievements, shortcomings, and challenges that still lie ahead. We welcome support offered by esteemed member states. Kenya wishes to reassure all present that all remarks and recommendations made by the delegations here today shall be examined carefully in line with our international human rights obligations and commitments. I thank you all for your engagement and reaffirm Kenya's unwavering commitment to the protection and promotion of human rights. Thank you so much, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Her Excellency the Attorney General and the delegation, the Kenyan delegation, for the presentation and the participation in this review.